All right, today we're tackling one of the biggest, oldest, and most profound questions humanity has ever asked. Now, my goal here isn't to give you the answer. Instead, think of me as your cartographer, here to help you map the vast, complex, and honestly fascinating territory of this great debate.
So let's just dive right in. The question itself couldn't be simpler, right? Three little words. Does God exist? But the echoes of that question have literally shaped civilizations, inspired breathtaking art, and fueled philosophical arguments for millennia. From the open forums of ancient Greece to the internet forums of today, it's a question that gets to the very heart of everything: existence, knowledge, and meaning itself.
But before we can even begin to explore the arguments, all the different mountains and valleys of this intellectual landscape, we need to get our bearings. We've got to understand the language of the map. We have to define our terms, because in this debate, trust me, words have very, very specific meanings.
So first up, we have theism. This is the foundational position. It's the proposition that a divine being, or maybe multiple beings, exist. It's a direct claim about the nature of reality. Pretty straightforward, right?
And on the other side of that coin, you've got atheism. This is also a direct claim about reality, but it's making the opposite case. It's the proposition that no, a divine being or beings do not exist.
Okay, now hang on, because this next one is absolutely crucial. Agnosticism. A lot of people think it's some kind of middle ground between theism and atheism, but it's not. It's playing on a totally different field. It isn't a statement about what you believe, it's a statement about what you can know. An agnostic basically says, I don't know if God exists. Or maybe even, it's impossible for anyone to know.
And here's where it gets really interesting, how those two ideas, belief and knowledge, play together. You see, you could be an agnostic theist. You'd say something like, yeah, I believe God exists, but I'm not going to pretend I know it for a fact. Or you could be an agnostic atheist, who might say, look, I don't believe in a God precisely because I don't know for sure that one exists. It's a subtle distinction, but it makes all the difference.
And just to add another layer of nuance, the biologist Richard Dawkins came up with this idea of a spectrum of theistic probability. This really shows that for most of us, belief isn't just a simple yes or no switch. It's a scale of confidence, right? From absolute 100% certainty on both ends, all the way down to a perfect 50-50 split right in the middle. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Where do most people you know actually land on this thing?
Okay, so now that we've got our map key, we've defined the terms, and we understand the spectrum, we're ready to actually start exploring the landscape to look at the major arguments that lead people to find their spot on that spectrum in the first place.
So let's start by climbing one side of this intellectual mountain. We're going to look at the case for a creator. And you'll find that thinkers have usually taken two main paths up this mountain. One is based on pure, cold logic, and the other is based on what we can see and observe in the world around us.
All right, let's start with that logical path. This is a classic one called the Kalam cosmological argument. The logic here is kind of like a line of dominoes. Every single thing that happens has something that caused it, right? But you can't have that chain of dominoes going back forever and ever. An infinite regress just doesn't make sense. The argument says that you eventually have to get to a first domino, and that first domino, the one that started it all without being pushed itself, well, that, proponents say, is God.
Okay, now for the other path, the one based on what we see. This is the famous argument from design, best known through the watchmaker analogy. The whole idea is simple, really. Complexity and function point to a designer. The argument goes that when you look at the intricate workings of the universe, from a single cell to the laws of physics, it looks a whole lot more like a finely crafted watch than a random pile of sand shaped by the waves.
And there you have it. That's a quick tour of the major arguments for a creator, built on foundations of logic and observation. But hey, a good cartographer maps the entire landscape, not just the sunny side of the mountain. So let's cross the valley and explore the case against the existence of a creator.
And what you'll find is that, just like before, the arguments against also tend to follow those same two paths, one of logic and one of evidence. So, on the logical side, the biggest, most powerful challenge is, hands down, the problem of evil. It's a real philosophical puzzle. Think about it. The claim is often that God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and perfectly good. But if that's true, well, an all-powerful God could stop evil, an all-knowing God would know how to stop it, and a perfectly good God would want to stop it. So why is there still so much suffering in the world? That apparent contradiction is a huge hurdle.
Now for the empirical argument against. This one's called the argument from inconsistent revelations. Basically, critics look out at the world and see hundreds of different religions, all claiming to have the one true message from God, but their messages contradict each other. They teach fundamentally different things about who God is or what happens when we die. So critics ask, how can they all be right? The argument is that this massive contradiction suggests these revelations are more likely a product of human culture, not a single divine source.
So, that's the core of the case against a creator. We've now charted both sides of the great debate. But what if we're using the wrong kind of map? What if this whole question is about a territory that our tools, our logic, and our evidence just can't chart?
This brings us to a whole new region on our map, one that's kind of off the grid. For instance, science, by its very definition, can only study the natural, testable world. So a supernatural creator is just outside its jurisdiction. Then you have some believers, called Theists, who say, you know what? Faith is all about taking a leap without proof. That's the whole point. And then you have the agnostics who kind of break the whole game by asking, hang on, what do we even mean by the word God? Is that term even clear enough for us to have a real debate about it?
So, as you can see, this whole thing takes us way beyond a simple yes or no, beyond easy proof and disproof. After our whole expedition, after mapping all this terrain, what's the big takeaway?
Well, maybe the point of the map isn't to find a single destination marked with an X. Maybe this question isn't a problem to be solved, like a math equation where you just find the right answer and you're done. Maybe for a lot of people, it's more of a profound mystery to be lived with, to be explored, and to be wrestled with throughout your life. And with that thought, our expedition is over. The map is now yours.